Oh, and welcome to Learning with Dr. Linda. We are continuing with change management courses. Today, we're going to be learning about a new change management model called force field analysis. The force field analysis. So far, if you've been following on my other videos, I've introduced the concept of the schools of organizational change. And we have seen that those schools that are individual, group, and open systems. The individual, we've looked at ADCA model. The group, we have looked at Catlin. The open systems, we have so far looked at McKinsey 7S model. Now, the force field analysis model is another type of open systems model of change management. And this is one of the most practical models that you can use for anything. Most of us struggle with decision making. We have decisions that we have to make, and sometimes they are very difficult decisions. Even at the individual level, you have to make decisions to do with, do I leave the job? Do I get a new job? Do I move cities? Do I remain in the same city? Personal, difficult decisions. As an organization, you're also faced with similar difficult decisions. Do you automate your systems? Do you hire? Do you outsource? Do you get an external change agent or an internal change agent? Do you move from one location to another? Very difficult decisions, sometimes that organizational managers are faced with. So today I want to introduce to you a model by Catlin called force field analysis. And force field analysis is a technique that you could use for both personal and professional decision making. Allow me to share my screen so that we can work together on these force field analysis or force field model. Yes. Now, the force field analysis model was created by Catlin in the 40s. Originally, it was used by social psychologists, but today it's used in almost every industry. It's used by corporates, it's used by education institutions, can be used by government entities, everybody. Actually, even at individual level, you can actually use the force field analysis. So it is a decision-making tool that can be used in different organizations. And how you use the tool is that you have two opposing forces. And you want to evaluate and see what could be the optimal decision based on the kind of forces, especially those that are presented by the environment that you're facing as an entity, as an organization, or even as an individual. So the number one thing you need to do when you're using the force field model is that you need to identify the goal for the change. What do you want to do? Do you want to automate your systems? Do you want to outsource a certain service? Do you want to have a new business process engineering? Do you want to do BPR? Do you want to use TQM or any other Kaizen or change management or quality management model in your organization? What exactly do you want to do? Do you want to move cities? Do you want to decentralize your operations? Do you want to automate your operations? What is the goal of the change? Once you've identified the goal of the change, the next thing is to identify the factors acting against the change. What are the triggers of this change? Why the need for the change? Are there been issues to do with external or internal, probably from the external environment? From the external environment, you're looking at the first 10, the political, economic, social, cultural, technological, ecological, and legal. Could there have been that a law has been passed, and this law requires that probably you use different processes than you were using before? Could it be an issue of demographics? Probably there's a change in demographics or a change in tastes and preferences of the people. Could there be a change in the social cultural aspects? Probably because of globalization, there has been changes in how people relate. What kind of force is acting upon the change? And when you're reviewing this, you need to ask yourself, is this force coming from the internal environment or is it coming from the external environment? The internal environment, these are those things that you have control over. You have control over your policies, you have control over your products, you have control over your technology that you decide to use, you have control over the morale of your employees, you have control over the kind of training that you provide to them. Whereas those that are external, they're those things that you have no control over. We call them the uncontrollable factors. And these are factors that you've just mentioned, the political environment. You have no control over that. The economic environment, inflation, you have no control over that. So those could be forces acting upon you, but they're coming from the external environment. It is very important to know whether a force is either internal or external. Because if it is internal, you know that you have some level of control. So there are things you can adjust. But if it is coming from the external environment, it becomes a little bit difficult because it is not controllable. However, you may realize that from the external environment, the change is not just affecting you, it's affecting everybody within that industry. So it's very important to know, is the change or the predicament or the issue at hand internal or external? Once you have evaluated the forces acting against the change from the same forces, which could either be internal or external, what are some of the things that are driving the change? Could be they're coming from still the internal environment and things that are favorable to the change. Could be it is something like what has happened with COVID-19 that is becoming more favorable that organizations adopt or automate their systems. So we could actually say COVID-19 or the pandemic has actually accelerated the need for people to automate their systems and to work digitally and to work from home. So what are the forces that are driving the change? And what are the forces that are acting against the change? Now, this is how the model looks like. You can see my arrows. We have the present state vis-a-vis the desired state. But also we have the restraining forces and we have the driving forces. It's very important that you brainstorm with your team on all the variables, all the variables. Do not underrate any variable because I'm going to show you what you're going to do with the variables once you have identified and put them down. So you have to find out what is it that you want to do. That is your present state or desired state. And then you have to find out what are the things that are driving this change and what are the things that are restraining the change. And you list them all down. I'm going to work with you with an example. This example is a Kenyan example. And Kenya is in the process actually of implementing a new competency-based curriculum. The competency-based curriculum came on board in 2019. And I think we are 2 years, going to 3 years into it. And it's being rolled out in phases as we phase out the old education curriculum that was called 844. Now, why did people feel the need for this new curriculum? And this is what you're talking about, the curriculum reforms. The desired change is curriculum reforms. And the curriculum reforms was so that we could have an engaged, empowered, and ethical citizen. We could have quality education. Now, that's our desired change. However, we have now the two sides, the driving forces and the obstacles or the restraining forces. Now, the driving forces, also known as the triggers of change, things to do with increased unemployment. We have had issues of unemployment in our country, and people have been thinking, maybe we need to do things a little bit differently. Probably we need to give our young people different skills that can make them a little bit more self-reliant rather than them focusing on getting a job. There have been issues to do with the internal environment. So increased unemployment is an external factor. Academic and examination orientation, we could say that is an internal factor. Most of the schools, the 844 system, encouraged a lot of academic and examination aspects. And that came at the expense of actually getting actual skills. So that could be a driving force for the need for the organization, for the institutions to adopt a competency-based curriculum. Social biases, need for entrepreneurial skills, all these are the driving forces. On the other hand, we have those things that are restraining the change. We would wish to have an engaged, empowered, ethical citizen. We would wish to have this kind of quality education, but it comes at a cost. We need to have our teachers trained. We need to have our teachers given the skills. We need parental engagement. There's the aspect of cost implication. People are usually resistant to change. And these are things that could actually resist or that could restrain change from actually happening. So what do you do as a change manager? You highlight everything that is in the column of driving, and you highlight everything that is in the column of the obstacles, and you rate them. You give them a weight. Of course, there are those things that are going to be more weighty than the others. Could be because of the cost implications, could be because of the extent, how much it's affecting all the other things, could be because of the resources that you have. Weights depend on an individual organization and the things that they are looking into. Could be it is a law. And if it's something that has been passed as a law, there's nothing you can do about that. And because of that, you have to give that a weighty a score. So of course, the giving of the weight can be subjective. And that is why it is very important to involve all the stakeholders so that you can be able to get a balanced weighting system. Now, how do we use this force field analysis? I've just mentioned it to you. You should brainstorm on all the possible factors that support or hinder the change process. You need to find out whether these factors are internal or they are external. Once you have done that, you need to identify your goal before you even brainstorm on the factors. We say the first step is to identify your goal. What is your goal? What is it that you want to achieve? What is your desired state? What is your present state? What will it take for you to move from the present state to the desired state? And these are some of the questions you need to reflect on. What are the deliverables? What are you looking for? How does success look to you? How will you measure impact? How will you measure that actually there has been an impact of maybe coming up with that model? Maybe with the CBC, with the example that I gave. How will you measure that you have an ethical, empowered, and engaged citizen? If you're bringing in a new automation or a new management system, management information system, how will you measure the deliverables of that change? You have to ask yourself, who supports the change? And sometimes the people who support the change could be within the organizations or even outside the organization. Could be you want to change into something, but you're not getting the political support or support from, say, it's the government or other institutions that you collaborate with. And that could actually undermine your change efforts. So you need to ask yourself, who is supporting the change? Who is against the change? And those who are against the change, why are they against the change? Don't dismiss them as, oh, these people are not interested with our change processes. Try to identify what are some of the things that are making these people be against the change. Could be you could alter one or two things about the change processes based on their feedback. What resources would you need? What are the costs and risks implications? And what kind of business processes that are going to be affected? Now, as you realize, the force field analysis is a model that is very, very critical because unlike most of the other models that you've looked at, this model reviews the aspects to do with the environment, how the environment is affecting your decision making. And this is a model that is very useful, especially when it comes to making complex decisions. I would want you to reflect on some of the complex decisions that your organization is being faced with and try to see how can you utilize the force field analysis model to be able to come up with decisions that are credible, decisions that are balanced, decisions that have minimal consequences, and decisions that are going to put your organization forward. Until then, have a wonderful time. Goodbye.